Harold Camping was proved to be a false prophet, but that hasn't stopped other prophetic speculators from getting into the game. I'm Gary DeMar, and welcome to this edition of Vantage Point. Harold Camping got a lot of attention for his predictions about a May 21st, 2011 end of all things. He has, of course, since said that this was going to take place again in October of 2011. Well, a TV station here in the Atlanta area decided it wanted a kind of a diverse opinion on Bible prophecy, and they invited me and a number of other men to participate in a panel discussion. What you're about to see is that panel discussion broken down into three parts. You will see that in addition to the standard dispensational perspective, to the man who is sitting to the right of me, there were other perspectives as well. Some of them probably a little on the fringe of what you might consider to be orthodox Bible prophecy. This only goes to show that only an appeal to the Bible, letting the Bible speak for itself, can you come away with a proper perspective on Bible prophecy. I hope you enjoy the panel discussion, and I hope it brings about some discussion of what needs to happen about Bible prophecy in the future. This is part two.
You know, really quickly, let me introduce, if you missed the first hour, let me go introduce these guys, and then I'll take it back to you. We've got right here, Louis Stover is here with us today, along with, right beside him, Gary DeMar, who's with American Vision. You can check out his website, encourage that to www.americanvision.org. A lot of great resources on there. He's written several books on this topic. And of course, introduced earlier to Pastor Travis Jennings. We got Dr. Thomas Slater, professor of New Testament at Mercer University. And right beside him is Carlton Johnson with Jesus Christ Movement, Inc. Guys, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I said I want to really use this time to educate and really get our viewers inspired, if anything, inspired to go out and study for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I know, Louis, you had something to say. You're raising your hand.
I'm anxious.
Absolutely.
Salvation, brethren, of course, I'm sure you agree, is not wrapped up in a denomination. Now, I've been part of the church I'm bishop of for more than 60 years. But salvation, I love that church, but it's not wrapped up in that church. It's not wrapped up in a denomination. Mm-hmm. Or some creed or ritual, but it's wrapped up in a person, and that person is Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Mm-hmm. And the rapture is going to be for all blood-washed, born-again believers. We better live under the blood, live covered by the blood. Mm-hmm. The blood's the only covering for sin and transgression. But now, one more thing, and I'll try to soft pedal here. I'm going to slow down a little bit. But one of the greatest biblical portions that point out to me the pre-tribulation rapture is Revelation chapter 5. You remember there in Revelation chapter 5, John had been caught up, of course, and showed future events. And there he sees Jesus take the seven-sealed book out of the right hand of him that sitteth on the throne. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And that seven-sealed book, when it's opened, will begin to unleash the terrible woes of the 7 years of tribulation. But before that happens, now Jesus is the one took that book, and he's the one who will open those seals. But there, after he takes that book and all, they begin to sing, Thou art worthy to take the book and open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood from every kindred, tongue, and people and nation. Now, that's people from all over. They're in heaven then. That's your raptured saints to me that's worshiping God then. Now they're going to come back. What do you do with Revelation 19 when Jesus comes back with the armies of heaven, and he comes back then to rule and reign and to reestablish the throne of David? I won't keep traveling. I'll let you, brethren.
Okay.
And I could go on and on with that.
Well, on that, though, you did talk about something that I think is really popular in people's minds, though, is talking about current events. And we do tend to look at current events and try to, dare I say, read them into Scripture and say, okay, this is what the Word is talking about, obviously, because this is going on, this is happening. And I know that's going on right now. Sparked new interest with President Obama talking about, bringing peace to Israel and saying, and talking about the borders. All of a sudden, it sparked a new interest of saying, oh, well, that's in the Book of Revelation. That's prophecy unfolding. But my question to you guys is it?
Well, I think when you were on the previous segment, you made the point with Thomas about all these books are written. These letters were written to a particular people, a particular period of time, and before you can make application to how it applies to us, you have to figure out what it first meant to them. And John is told, whoever reads this book is going to benefit by it. He described himself as a fellow partaker in the tribulation. This is why I think Revelation is not about our time, it was about what was going on in his time. I believe Revelation was written prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Chapter 4, not chapter 5, John is the one who's taken up into heaven. People say, well, the church is mentioned in the first 3 chapters, but not mentioned after that. Actually, the church is not mentioned even in the first 3 chapters. It's the churches in the church in Thyatira, the church in Philadelphia.
7 churches.
Yeah.
7 churches. Now, what's interesting is that what chapters after chapter 4 is supposed to be the 7-year tribulation period. Problem is the phrase 7 years never appears in the book of Revelation. And then Jesus is supposed to come back and reign on the earth for 1,000 years, and yet Revelation 20 doesn't say anything about Jesus reigning on the earth. It says nothing about this reestablishing the throne of David. The throne of David is established if you read the book of Acts. So there's a lot to this, and I think the context and the time period is extremely important to figure out first before you move on to how this might apply today.
There you go. Now, I got to say this, and then we're going to take a quick break and come right back, is saying it the way that I did makes for good movies. It makes and I say that as a joke, but on the lighter side, it also does fill the congregation and get people interested and excited about it. And so that's something to think about. Is why do we even bring that stuff up on that? And now we're going to take a quick look at this clip. We'll be right back.
All right, what are you not telling me? Get me up to speed now or get out of my truck.
Matthew Dean is a CIA operative we've been investigating. Nick and Dean have been in communication for the last several weeks. We believe that they are working together on a major operation.
What, the nukes?
We have information that the CIA has been investigating certain biblical or apocalyptic events.
Whoa. Are you kidding me?
I haven't been able to wrap my head around it either, but apparently recent world events have been fitting right into what is known as the Ezekiel War scenario.
What is the Ezekiel War scenario? Eve.
According to the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel, in the last days, the people of Persia, which is of course Iran, and the people of Gog or Rosh, which many believe to be Russia, form an alliance whose main purpose is to obliterate Israel.
Are we talking the end of the world?
I can't accept that yet, but it may be possible.
I'm gonna go talk to your spook.
All right. I got to go to you because I saw your face during that. We're talking about the end times, the Battle of Gog, and you get Russia involved and all these other things. What is happening there? What is there truth there?
Well, Ezekiel 38 and 39 has been used for centuries as some sort of end time deal, and I wrote a book on this, Why the End of the World is Not in Your Future. And she mentioned the young lady mentioned that the Hebrew word rosh very quickly say, well, it could be Russia, and it's, Rosh sounds like Russia and so forth, but in Hebrew, Rosh simply means the head or chief, the Rosh Hashanah, the highest holy day. And they turn Rosh into the prince of Rosh, which would be the leader of Rosh, but it's actually the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And they say, and the people who take this position say they interpret the Bible literally. Well, you go through Hebrew, you go through Ezekiel 38 and 39. They're riding horses. They have shields, bucklers, swords, and chariots. They're after gold, silver, cattle, and goods. They talk about a period of time of unwalled cities, Ezekiel 38:11. That doesn't fit today in Israel, because Israel has miles and miles of walled cities. Plus, it also mentions in that verse that this being about security, being a secure city. But what's interesting, if you go to the book of Ezra chapter 1, I think it's verse 4, the things that the Israelites brought back from the captivity, the tribes of Judah and some who were left over from the Assyrian captivity, what they bring back are gold, silver, cattle, and goods, the same thing. And I believe that Ezekiel 38 and 39 is a prophecy about what takes place during the time of the book of Esther. What does Haman want to do? Haman wants to come in and destroy all the Jews, Esther chapter 3. Esther chapter 9, it's the same Hebrew word is used that's used in Ezekiel about unwalled cities. At that particular time, they were living during this period of unwalled cities. It fits, the time period fits, the characterization of things fit in it. In fact, there's a description in Ezekiel 38:9. The guy is called Haman Gog. Haman was the bad guy in the book of Esther. He is the last Amalekite. He is described in a number of Jewish writings and in the Septuagint as a Gogite. So I believe that particular passage has nothing to do with our day. It had to do with that particular period of time. Now, that does not mean, and I don't want to diminish anything that's taking place in Israel today. I think it's a dangerous situation. Yeah. But to line it up with Bible prophecy creates a prophetic inevitability that there's nothing we can do about this. There has to be a nuclear war. There has to be all these things. And I think it is dangerous. A similar thing happened during World War II with the Jews. You look at the periodicals of that particular period of time. They took a position. This was all forecast as part of God's prophecy that Israel was going to be persecuted. Following Zechariah 13:8, where 2/3 of the Jews were supposed to be slaughtered. It's very dangerous to create these scenarios and create an idea of a prophetic inevitability.
Yeah. Wow.
I'd like to chime in because I think the viewers are thinking about, once again, the second coming of Christ. And once again, we all have different perspectives. So I'd just like to add another one in. I look at Hosea chapter 6, verse 1 through 3. It talks about, after 2 days, I will revive them. And in the third day, I will raise them up, and they shall live in my sight. We know 2 Peter 3:8 says a day is as 1,000 years. So if it's after 2 days, God is saying, I will revive them, and in the third day, I will raise them up, and they will live in my sight. Pretty much that's the world to come, living with Christ, the new world to come. If you look at that, where would we start the 2,000-year count from? It would have to be the birth of Christ. All history converges with the birth of Christ. So after 2 days, I will revive them. That's why I know we're about to hit the biggest revival ever. It's been 2,000 years since the birth of Christ. Depending on whether you say 5 BC, 3 BC, somewhere in that ballpark, you're looking about 1996, 1998. But listen to this. Most people may have heard that before. God does things in types and patterns. When he came down on Mount Sinai, at what time did he come? He came in the morning. Exodus 19, verse 16. On the third day in the morning, he came down. Book of Acts, the next major outpouring. When did the Holy Spirit come on the day of Pentecost? It was in the third hour, which translated our time means 9 o'clock in the morning. Now we know again, it's two types of pattern, Mount Sinai, Pentecost, and there's another, the final second coming of Christ. Let's look at the pattern. Both have been in the morning. Both have been with loud noises, lightnings and thunderings, or a loud, mighty rushing wind. We know Thessalonians says it's going to be with the sound of an archangel or trump. It's going to be in the morning. But let's think about, okay, in the morning. The biblical account in Hebraic starts, the day starts in evening, not at midnight. See, we got to understand the biblical Hebraic understanding before we can begin to understand the patterns and types that God is doing. So, okay, let's say 2 days is 2,000 years. At the end of 2 days, it will be evening. If he's coming in the morning, you still got to get to morning. That's another 12 hours to go from evening to morning. So as a day is 1,000 years, another half a day be another 500 years. So if 1996 add another 500 years, this is why I'm saying I don't think he's coming in my lifetime. I'm preparing for it, but the revival part, that's what I'm getting ready for. Okay. That outpouring, this one that God is going to do. Okay, 500 more days will be around 2,496. Then what time in the morning did he come? Morning lasts from 6, let's say 6 to noon. Because you know you got days from 6 to noon, then the afternoons 12 to 6, evenings 6 to midnight, and then midnight. That's at night. Okay, you got 6 hours of cover morning. In Exodus, it doesn't say what time in the morning, but Acts says at the 3rd hour. Translate, that's 9 o'clock in the morning. So you already got 2,000 years, 1996. You got to add another 500 hours to get from evening to morning on the Hebrew time. And then you got another 3 hours if it's 9 o'clock. So at minimum, you got another 125 years you have to add in there. So we're looking at minimum 2,424 something before Jesus comes back. Just look at the biblical. That's the pattern.
Now here's the I don't know how to segue to this, but